So welcome back. I hope that you learned a lot in lesson 1 about attachment styles. I hope that it gave you kind of insight on how other people are showing up and how you're showing up in your life. So hold on to that information. We're moving into lesson 2, which is the stories we tell ourselves. It's actually one of my favorite weeks, although I feel like all the weeks are my favorite weeks. If you've ever done this, I've completely done this before, where I've made an assumption about what somebody else is thinking and feeling, and I was way off. Like I thought that they were upset with me and maybe didn't like me, and come to find out they were having a bad day, or they had a headache, or they didn't hear me when I said hello to them. So I might be filtering things through this lens of I can't trust people, or people don't like me, or there's something wrong with me, or it's my fault. And so I have this lens, everything is going through it, and clearly it's distorted. Maybe it's not actually accurate, maybe that's not actually what's happening. And what we need to understand is that we're constantly talking to ourselves. The premise of cognitive behavioral therapy actually is that we have a thought before we have a feeling. A lot of times, I remember when I first learned this, I was like, no, we don't. I'm just feeling these things. But really, when we look back past the feeling, there's something I am perceiving or telling myself. You know, I alluded to this in our last class, but what if the story I'm telling myself is so inaccurate, or so distorted, or so fear and pain-based, that it might not even be based in reality whatsoever, or the reality that we're willing to allow ourselves to enter into is a much smaller story. And so kind of as we explore your own story narratives, like what you believe about yourself, what you believe about other people, what you believe about life, can actually change how you're engaging in it. And maybe, just maybe, we can have a bigger, better story. Remember how I talked about we're going to get into some very practical steps? This is probably the session where we're going to have the most skills to take away from here. And so we're going to actually enter into a few powerful practices that are well researched so that they can actually profoundly change how we feel and how we're thinking. So those things that we're going to try and explore is really we're going to pick apart how we're responding to painful events or events that might trigger some negative thinking. Like, how is this really impacting me when I'm thinking this way? What's really happening within me, and how am I really responding? Now, where the work comes in, or where the change comes in, is we think about what's another way to look at this. And so you can see how if I can get a handle on, or some awareness on how I'm operating and the stories I'm telling myself, I can even engage other people in healthier ways. I can kind of have an understanding, oh, I'm doing that thing where I'm assuming this about people. So I'm looking forward to journeying with you in this session as we kind of explore what those habits and fears are, and we start to let them go.